In the Old Testament book of Kings and Chronicles, we see some of the various kings who ruled over the land of Judah. And as you read through those books, you'll see that the kings are sort of grouped into two categories. There are the ones who followed after in the same path as Ahab, who was a very wicked king, and they did what was evil in the sight of the Lord. And then there were those who lived for the Lord and whose lives were pleasing to the Lord. And in the midst of all of these kings, we read this very interesting little blurb in 2 Chronicles 22. It says, "Then the inhabitants of Jerusalem made Ahaziah, his youngest son, king in his place." Ahaziah was the youngest son of King Jehoram, who had died a horrible death. And in the verses preceding this, it talks about the fact that really nobody was sad to see him dead, which is sort of a sad commentary on life right there. But they made Ahaziah, his youngest son, king in his place, for the band of men who came with the Arabs to the camp had slain all the older sons. So Ahaziah, the son of Jehoram, king of Judah, began to reign. Ahaziah was 22 years old when he became king, and he reigned 1 year in Jerusalem. And his mother's name was Athaliah, the granddaughter of Omri. He walked in the ways of the house of Ahab. So we already know that if he walked in the ways of the house of Ahab, he did evil in the sight of the Lord. But then there's this really sad phrase that comes on the end of that verse, and it says, "For his mother was his counselor to do wickedly." And we looked recently at Lois and Eunice, the mother and grandmother of Timothy, and how they had given him a foundation of faith. And we looked at the fact that as individuals, whether we're moms, grandmas, or have no children of our own, but we all have the opportunity to pass on a godly foundation to our families, to our friends, to our neighbors, to our co-workers. But here, this woman, Athaliah, what she passed on was a foundation of evil, that she counseled her son, the king, to do wickedly. And just as we can have a positive influence on those around us, we can also have a very negative influence on those around us. We can, in effect, by our words, by our actions, by the behavior that we model, we can counsel those around us, overtly or not, to do wickedly. So I would say when we have a choice to follow in the path of Lois and Eunice or to follow in the path of Athaliah, we should choose Lois and Eunice because we know that their influence was godly, whereas Athaliah's was wicked. Let's pray that God would help us to follow the path of Lois and Eunice and to avoid that path that would lead someone else to displease the Lord.